with a girl, her last name was Perskin.
Lovely.
Last name was what?
It's true. It's true. Perskin.
You live on Regina.
Name was on Regina. Her last name was Perskin.
First kid.
Okay.
I knew Perskin. It was like that. We can't do this. Imitations.
Zucht. Zucht.
Cut it off right now. Cut it
More.
off right now.
So we had yesterday Machlekes Tanoi.
You have the same first name as your share. It doesn't start. Like
Our
me.
My father is a model.
our, our,
One of the names are kind of college.
our Mishnah says that a shor of hektish that shtoish is a shor of hedget, or vice versa, there's no payment because it says re'eyu v'chigav shorish a shor re'eyu. Hektish is not re'eyu, so hektish is not subject to any of the rules of hektish is not subject to any of the rules of Nezikin. But Reb Shimon ben Menashe said it's one way. If hektish is shor, shtoish is your shor, yes, hektish is potter. But if your shor, shtoish is hektish is shor, no matter what, you're going to have to pay nezek shalom. And the Gemara was looking for a makar to Reb Shimon ben Menashe. So the maskana is that the main parsha of zikin of shor is by the muad, where a person pays nezek shalom. So really, that is the rule. Your ox damages, you pay nezek shalom. The Torah now introduces a kula. If your shor is a shortam, we'll be lenient with you. That kula, it says re'eyu. That kula only applies to re'eyu. That you pay chati nezek if your animal is a shortam. But it does not apply, but it does not apply to hektish. And therefore, you have to pay nezek shalom if you damage hektish.
Is that a right that the Chazinezek is b'moinei?
No.
It's a reduction as opposed to just
Oh,
looking at it as a
so
reduction.
maybe he would have to learn. Maybe he would have to learn that the kula is your potter and gantan and just a knas of chatin nezek. But that way. But the problem is with this mahalach, we need to know how do you know that hektish is potter if it shtoishes shalhedjit, because if you're telling me that in the parsha of nezek shalom it doesn't discuss hektish, so Rashi actually invents a new pshat. And Rashi sticks in that by Shor Amud it says Behud B'Ba'olov, and by Tam it says V'chigach Shor Ish, V'loi Shor Shalaktish. So Rashi teaches a whole new limud that's not anywhere in the Gemara. Rashi in the second shot that it's all totally under Re'ehu, and Re'ehu says that the Shor Shalaktish, that the Tam will not pay Chati Nezek, and being that Nezek Shalom is built on Chati Nezek, doesn't pay nezek shalom. Okay, now we're discussing a shor of a yid that shtoish is a shtor of a non-Jew. Now it's interesting in the Gemara to note the Mishnah uses the word kanaini, and the Tziyonim change it to nachri. So that might come into play today. Is it all nachrim, or maybe it's only kanainim? Kanainim usually is the name used to refer to the Shiva Amamin. Usually means all Shiva Amamin, meaning those nations that we have to wipe out, right? Or so that will come a little bit into play today, and I'm discovering it together as we're learning. Zok Tehelig Gemara. Shor Shal Yisrael Shenogach Shor Shal Kanaini Potter. I gotta change my chair. It's shaking. It's rocking my face the whole time in the morning.
Chair.
Okay. Shaking back and forth all night. I wanted a rocking chair. I would get myself a hot tea and a recline in my pajamas. Okay. Zok the Gemara. Shor Shal Yisrael Shenogach Shor Shal Kanaini Potter. Zok the Gemara. Amri Mimanavshach. Regardless how you're going to learn it, it doesn't make sense to make a distinction between the reciprocity of a yid shtoising a goy versus the other way around. Then the Kanaini ki nogach to Yisrael nami lived. A Kanaani's ox who shtoishes a Yisrael's ox should be potter as well. Lav dafka afil the Yisrael ki nogach to Kanani nechayev. Now the Tzionim in the Mishnah that changed Kanaani to Nachri say that will carry through this entire sugya. If you gurish Kanani in the Mishnah, you gurish Kanani in the Gemara. If you gurish Nachri in the Mishnah, you're going to be gurish Nachri in the Gemara as well. So Amar Bavo Amar Kra, really, as far as Hilchos Nazikin is concerned, there is no difference whatsoever between damages done to a goy or a non-goy. You'd have to pay in full. So why don't you have to pay for damages done to a goy? Amar Bavo Amar Kra, we have a pasuk. It says as follows. Let's read the pasuk inside. Amad vayemoided eretz, or Amad vayemoided. Amad vayemoided. This pasuk is in Chavakuk, and I believe it's referring to when the Yidden came in to Eretz Yisrael, and it says Amad vayemoided. They assessed the goyim, the Shiva Amim that were inhabiting Eretz Yisrael at that time. Eretz Ra vayater goyim. The land saw that these goyim were not behaving properly in Eretz Yisrael, and therefore they were hufkar. In other words, they're going to get bounced out of Eretz Yisrael for Klal Yisrael to take over. By Yispoizitzu Hare Aid, I think it says Hare Ad. Shachu Givashalim. It's talking about the Titans. These mountains are the Titans. Those nations that were so powerful. Sicha and Oig, or the Moavim, the Canaanim, the Shiva Amin, they were dynasties. They were rock solid dynasties, but they were obliterated. They were splintered. So that's what the pasuk is talking about, the Pashtus. But the Gemara darshans it as follows: Amad vayemoided eretz ra vayater goyim. Zok the Gemara ra sheva mitzvahs shekiblu aleim b'nei Noach. Because the Baruch Hu saw the sheva mitzvahs that B'noach were makabel upon themselves that they had to do. Kivan shaloi kaimu, and they did not make Mekayim. They were not Mekayim, even the sheva mitzvahs. Therefore, Amad vehitir mamoinon liyisrael. Because of that, Hashem was matir their mamoin liyisrael. Hashem was mafkir. Now, it's very interesting to note. So if that means you can go rip off a guy, you can do whatever you want to a guy. Dr. says no. It was limited to a very specific case, which we're going to have to understand why. Since they didn't do Shiva Mitzvah Noach, we're going to punish them. How? We're not being mad any of their money. Not a steal, not a touch. If your ox touches their ox, you don't have to pay. What's up is that's how they decided to sanction the goyim. So we're going to have to get an explanation to that. Tosha says, if you hold Gezel Knani Osir, it makes sense that they were only matter this thing. If Gezel Akim is mutter, so then
Even more.
the whole thing's not Megaya. So we're going to have to understand Toshvis, and really to Gemara, because it's mashma, it's just for Nizakin that their moment became hefker. Rabbi Yochanan says, we know it from the following passage. Haifia mehar para. So this is a famous pasuk. It's in Hazina, right? Hashem Sinai, but Hashem came from Sinai. Thank you. You know, I could be fast and easy with Sukkim when Meyer's around, because I know if I'm making a mistake, Meyer will correct it. So even you learn for bracha?
Yeah, by
You do
by
it?
his station.
What?
By his
station. Okay, I learn it too, and I don't know it. Okay, so Hafiyah Meyer Paran. Hashem, it's what is the Hashem shine from Seir? He came from Harparan, Vosam Rivers Kodesh. So what does it say here? Haifiyah me Harparan, mi Paran, from Paran, Haifiyah. What's the definition of Haifiyah? Rashi says Gila Mamonian. He revealed all their money, Vitiri, and you let anybody take it. Yisrael. Tani Namihachi. We learned a Brisa Shor Shol Yisrael Shonagach Shor Shol Knani Potter, but Shor Shol Knani Shonagach Shor Shol Yisrael Bein Tam Bein Mud Mishalom Nezek Shalem. Shenemar, so we just quoted Rabbi Vo having learned it from one pasuk, Rabbi Yochanan having learned it from another pasuk, and now we have a brisa that actually brings down both psukim. Shenemar Amad ve'yemoided eretz, Amad ve'yemoided eretz ra v'yater goyim ve'omer, and for good measure we have another pasuk Haifiyah mehar paran. Frank the Gemara as usual, my ve'omer. If the first pasuk did the trick, what's the need to go to the second parak? If you're going to argue, Hi Amad Vayemoided Eretz, Mi Boile Lichadrav Masna Chadrab Yosef, you need that pasuk for beautiful drushes that the Gemara is soon going to share with us. That makes them occupied, and therefore we can't use them to teach us that Hashem was mating their money. Tashma Haifiyah Mehar Paran, Mi Paran Haifiyah Mamonon LiYisrael. So let's drill down a little bit in this pasuk of Haifiyah Mehar Paran. The first pasuk, we got the message. Amad V'Hiter Mamonon LiYisrael. What does it mean? Mi Paran Haifiyah Mamonon LiYisrael. Zogt Toisus, a beautiful Toisus. Pirsha Kuntris, Shesivev V'Hichser Atayra V'Chala Umois V'Loikavlua. Hashem was on the road salesman. He was trying to sell this encyclopedia door to door, and nobody wanted to buy it. Mashma Sharat Saloimer. The Biparon Nikla Umais. If it was Haifiyah Paran, it means in Paran is where Hashem revealed Himself and the Torah to the nations of the world where they rejected the Torah. The Metargim Metura, the Gavla, is Gali Levnei Yishmael. In the mountains of Gavla, Hashem revealed Himself to the Bnei Yishmael. Uparan Eretz Yishmaeli, and we know that Paran is where Yishmael settled. So we know that's where the Bnei Yishmael resided. Uberesh B'Sechas Avodah Zarah is the Garsi. Ma boy b'Seir. What was Hashem doing in Seir? Ma boy b'Paran. Frek Toys was a problem because the B'Shabbos Perak Rabbi Akiva Mashu the Paran to Sinai. As much as Paran is on a separate land, Paran is just another word to describe Sinai. The Kachash of Hey Shemosh Shenikrulai. The Gemara mentions 5 different names that was used to describe Midbar Sinai. It was Midbar Tzin, Midbar Kadesh, Midbar Paran, Midbar Sinai, and Midbar Kedemos. But the Maharshal gets mashma that Paran was a different place. Venira, the Midbar Sinai, Midbar Goda. Midbar Sinai was a very big Midbar. Umitzad Echad Nikra Sinai. One area of it is called Sinai. Umitzad Achar, but the other area of the same Midbar, Nikra Paran. Chol Chamisha Shemesh the Kachashav Masechah Shabbos. It had different areas. There was different areas, different municipalities in one big midbar. Even though it dashes all the shemois, so it's as if it's all referring to one midbar. And that's not a kasha. That side of the midbar that was in Paran, Nigla of Neishmael. So David's altar was on in the morning, so he knows this stuff. So we think, he said, so he thinks, he said, this is what he thought. We think that just the Sinai Peninsula is called Midbar Sinai. Midbar Sinai extends a lot to the east into Saudi Arabia. So if you're going to the east of the Gulf of Aqaba, southeast of the Gulf of Aqaba, that's all desert. Saudi Arabia, that's Paran. That is Paran. No, he told me he knows that's Paran. That is Paran. He said even if you're driving south from Yam HaMelech Teilat, you actually hit a city called Paran, but I don't know if that's modern day Paran. I don't know if that corresponds to that. But he said Paran was for sure the area southeast of the Gulf of Aqaba, which is Saudi Arabia, right? Because at the Gulf of Aqaba, it's where Israel, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia they meet right there at that point. So it was out there, and that's where a lot of the fights in the Midbar was, which makes sense because just in the Sinai Peninsula to hang out for 40 years, you get a little claustrophobic. They had a little more room to spread out over there in the Midbar. Okay, so that is the halacha. So the Marsha speaks out, and other Achronim speak out, is that Hashem told Esav, "How would you like my Torah?" Esav says, "What does it say in your Torah?" Hashem said, "Lo yitzach." Not for us. Yishmael asked, what does it say in the Torah? And Hashem said, Signite. And they said, not for us. So since Yishmael didn't have respect for other people's property, they had no problem violating other people's property. B'davka, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to be mafkir their money to teach them a lesson that they should be careful, with other people's property. So because of that, there's a lot of opinions in the Rishonim whether this applies to all goyim. Maybe it only applies to the Shiva Amamin, because in the first pasuk it's referring only to the Shiva Amamin that were not keeping the Shiva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. That's why they were thrown out of Eretz Yisrael to begin with. And maybe it says l'sachaya kol neshama, you can kill them, you for sure can take their money. There are those who learn it's only for those Amamin who even today don't keep the Shiva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. And there are those who said it was for Yishmael because Yishmael, and it was almost like a shikol derabbanan with an asmachta, being that Yishmael has no respect for other people's property. We Badavka sanctioned them that if they damage, they always pay Nezek Shalem, so they should be uber careful with caring about other people's property, and people who damage them don't have to pay, just to teach them what it feels like not to be a victim of what they themselves perpetrate. Unfortunately, Israel doesn't have that shita. They don't show Hamas what it feels like to be a victim of what they perpetrate. But that's because we can't do such barbaric things. Okay, Gavaltic. So that gives a little bit of an understanding why B'davka Sharshanagach. We don't let you steal from them because you're not supposed to steal. But if you damage them, if a Zoivite, they made it takana that you don't have to pay, or they have to pay Nezek Shalem. Why? Because we want to create awareness to them that Geneva is not such a geschmacka thing. Okay, Zok the Heilige more weiter. So we have this brisa that brought both psukim because we have beautiful drushes to share about the first pasuk of Amad Vayemoidei. So the Gemara asks as follows. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not there yet. I'm not there. Damar Rab Masna, right? My Rab Masna. What is Rab Masna's limud? Damar Rab Masna, Amad Vayemoidei, Eretz Ra, Ma Ra, what did the Eretz see? Ra Sheva Mitzvah, Shinistabu Aleim B'nei Noach, V'lai Kaimim. And since they weren't Mekayim the mitzvahs, Amad V'higla Oisam Yalad Masam. That's why they were expelled from the land, and Klal Yisrael came in and took over. Frank the Gemara, Vayater, how does that mean that they were thrown out? How do you say from the word Vayater that they're thrown out? Umay mashma, Dai Vayater, Lishna de Gluyu. Zog the Gemara, simple. Ksivhacha Vayater Goyim. Uksivhasam, when it's talking about the characteristics of a grasshopper, Linater Bahena La'oretz, to be minater on the land. That's what their legs are used for. Umetargim Likafza Bahena La'oretz. A grasshopper jumps. In other words, it doesn't settle in one place. It's bouncing around. So too, the Sheva Amin were by Yater, they were bounced out of their land. My Rabbi Yosef, what is Rabbi Yosef's drasha from this pasuk? Rabbi Yosef, Amad Vayemoidei Eretz, Ra, Ma Ra, Sheva Mitzvah, Shekibel Aleim B'nei Noach, V'loi Kaimim. Since they were not Mekayim the mitzvahs, you know what Hashem did? He said, okay, you don't have to do them anymore. Amad V'tir Lahem. Frekt Gemara, so Isker and Isker, they benefited from not doing the mitzvahs. You find you doing it there and you benefit from it. What you think if you think it's a benefit to having lost the opportunity to do mitzvahs? No. Even if they will be mekayim the mitzvahs voluntarily, they don't get schar. Frankly, more if you do mitzvahs and you're not a mitzvah you don't get schar. That's not true. Even a Nochri who's Isaac B'Torah, Shahu Kikayin Gadol, he's like a Kayin Gadol. Talmud Loimer, it says Asher Yasa Oisam Ha'adam V'Chai Bohem. It doesn't say Asher Yasa Oisam Kohanim, or Asher Yasa Oisam Leviim, or Asher Yasa Oisam Yisraelim. It says Asher Yasa Oisam Ha'adam. Kohanim Leviim Yisraelim Nemar La'adam. Halamadita Shafilu Nochri, Isaac B'Torah, Harayu Kikayin Gadol. Zakkumar Einachanami. They do get schar. Amri ein mekabel alein schar kemitzuva v'oisa. Ela kamish ein mitzuva v'oisa. They only get the lower level of schar of an ein mitzuva v'oisa. Why does an ein mitzuva v'oisa get less schar than the mitzuva v'oisa? Because he doesn't have a yetzahara trying to prevent him from doing the avera. So it's much easier for him to do the mitzvahs. I'm sorry, trying to prevent. He doesn't have a yetzahara trying to prevent him from doing the mitzvah. So it's much easier for him to do the mitzvah. So therefore, it's a milo being a mitzuva v'oisa. So first I want to share a word that Chaim Tzvi tells me over all the time, and I forgot who he said it from. But he said over from somebody. Somebody asked, why is it that men are mechuyev, they have a chiyuv to teach their children Torah, to be mechanech for kids. Women do not have a chiyuv to be mechanech for kids. Why is it like that? So he said over from somebody, because the Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to make sure that there would be no chinuch is so sacrosanct. Kadosh Baruch Hu make sure that there would be absolutely no barrier to chinuch. If a woman would be mitzvah v'oisa, because even though the husband's mitzvah v'oisa, but who does the chinuch? Who raises the children? The mother does. If a woman would be mitzvah v'oisa, then the Yetzer would try to get in the way. Hashem's not risking chinuch. You'll have to pass on the mitzvah. You're not getting a mitzvah. We want you to do it without any problems. Your husband will give him a mitzvah. The Yetzer will say, you're too tired. You can't chazer with your kid tonight. Oh, you're too tired. You're not slugging him up at the bottom. That we can live with. But a mother, no, a mother, if we need her, she's the main killer of chinuch. That's what Chaim says over. Beautiful word. But now we have a problem of Adam. Adam refers to Goyim as well. But we know that's not true. It says Atem Kurim Adam, right? Adam Kiyamas Boyle. So let's look at this thesis. Ella Adam Tema. Ha'ein Oivdika Chavim Kurim Adam. Kidetanya Beperka Makabel. Amar Abshim Ben Yoichi. Ein Kivrei Ha'oivdika Chavim Metamim Boyle. Shnemer Adam Kiyamas Boyle. Atem Kurim Adam. Be'ein Ha'oivdika Chavim Kurim Adam. In fact, Dal Misa is Pirish Bekuntrist. Maybe Rabbi Meir is arguing. Tosha says there's a difference between the word Adam, which only refers to a Yid, and Ha-Adam, which can refer to a Goy as well. So everybody knows the famous story with the Mendel Beiler's trial when he was being tried for killing a Christian child for using the child's blood for his matzahs, and they didn't have any real evidence because he didn't do it. It's very hard to have real, so they had to rely on like circumstantial. So one of the main times that the prosecutor had was, we see in your Gemara, it says, Atem Krim Adam, you don't even consider us human. So of course you're going to exterminate us. and that was a big kind of. And the defense witness didn't know what to say, so they reached out to Reb Meir Shapiro. Reb Meir Shapiro guided and advised the defense lawyer what to say, and he said as follows: ask the judge, when you have a typical murder trial, how many people come as observers to support the person on trial? Maybe his parents, maybe his spouse, maybe a couple of people. Look what's going on over here. First of all, the courtroom was bursting at the seams. It's overcrowded. Every Jew is here. Besides that, there's reporters from all over the world, and their write-ups, and newspapers all over the world are reporting on this, and the radios, the reports, they had radio in those days. It's all over the world, and Jews are glued to their radio all over the world. Now, how does that make sense? So he said, in the Jewish language, every single word has a plural tense, right? The only word in the Jewish language that does not have a plural tense is the word Adam. There is no plural for Adam. There's Anosh, Anoshim, right? Noshim, but there's no such thing as Adamim. Adam is singular. That describes the Jewish people. If your finger hurts, your whole body is not happy. If your toe hurts, your whole body is not happy. All Jews are like limbs of one big body. We're Adam. We're one big person. And that's why you see this, because we all feel so close together. That's Adam Kriim Adam. By Goyim, you don't have that. Of course, you're human, and we respect you in life probably even more than you do. But you Goyim don't stick together like we do, and that's what it means. That sort of turned the tide of the trial. It was pretty awesome. The other interesting thing about Adam is by Moshe Rachman's Levaya, Shmuley Harris spoke, and he said over another of Meir Shapiro, and he said that after HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Adam, it says V'hinei Tov Ma'od. What does Ma'od mean? He said Ma'od means, Dr. Meir Shapiro, everything in the world can be measured. We can actually measure the depth of the ocean. We can measure the distance to stars, distance to the sun. Science does everything. There's only one thing that cannot be measured. That's the potential of a person. What a person can pull off is immeasurable. And that's why the letters that spell the word Adam are the same words that spell the word Ma'od. Because a person's potential is unlimited. So that's a beautiful shot on Adam. Okay, so we're Adam. They might be Ha-Adam, but we're Adam. Okay, gewaltig. Taner Rabbanan. Ukvashilcha malchus roimi, because like this halacha, I think would be a little bit difficult to explain to a guy that if we damage you, we don't have to pay, but if you damage us, you have to pay, right? Like I remember, I think I said the story over in Philadelphia yeshiva. The neighborhood around the yeshiva is all good. It's all Philadelphia people. And this Dr. Zuckin over on YouTube. But so I remember that there was a Yid. His name is Reb Zalman Rubin. He is a Vermi Birnbaum Shver. And he lived in Philadelphia. He's a Rebbe in TA. I don't think he lives there anymore. And next door to him, the cook of the yeshiva lived. The cook of the yeshiva was an old Satmar couple, and they had children that lived in Williamsburg. So their children would come from time to time for Shabbos. So one day, Zalman walks out of his house. I remember he had a green Chevy Impala station wagon. You remember those Impala wagons that all these yeshiva guys had? So he comes out, and he sees this guy is taking out his headlight. So he asked him, "What are you doing?" He says, "This is a Yid? Okay, I'll have him for the next car." Because he must have learned this Gemara. Okay, Taner Rabbanan. Ukvar Shalcha Malchus Raimi Shnei Star Dioitos Eitel Chachma Yisrael. The Romans sent two officers to the Chachma Yisrael. Limdunu Torascha. Teach us your Torah. Karu v'shanu v'shilshu. They learned it 3 times. Shrek Toisvis, you're not allowed to teach a guy Torah. So Toisvis, if there's a gun to your head, yeah, you're allowed to teach him Torah because it's not one of the Aharik Val Yafers. Or Toisvis says, who said they identify themselves? Maybe they came, they made believe like they wanted to convert, they became Gerim, and it was all a ploy and a ruse to be able to learn Torah. But whatever the case, they learned Torah, and they were very, very impressed. The Shas P'tirasim, when they decided they're leaving, Amulem, they told their Rebbeim, Dikdaknu b'chol Toraskim. We checked out your whole Torah. We learned it thoroughly. We love it. The emes, it's perfect. It's emes. Chutz b'davar. We can't get our heads around this one halacha. Shatem oimrim shar shel Yisrael shenogach shar shel Knani potter, but shel Knani shenogach shar shel Yisrael bein tam bein mut mashal mezuk sholim mimanashich. They're lamdanim already. Irei udafke afil deknani kinach Yisrael liftar. Virei ulav dafka afil Yisrael kinach deknani lechayim. But don't worry, even though we don't like it, we won't report this back. So for Rashi, why didn't they just explain to him the reason? The Rashi is because I would have made it worse, not better. The Torah sanctions you. So they didn't explain the reason because let's leave it at that. Let's not dig the hole deeper. Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, that this is such a fascinating story.
They're saying the article says a fascinating thing here. Says despite their pledge, as soon as they reach the shores of Eretz Yisrael to take the ship for Rome, they miraculously were made to forget all that they had learned. That should they change their minds, they would be powerless to bring harm upon.
So the mama's like that feeling you lose.
All the way to the
Gewaltig. Very good. That's gewaltig. So this story is unbelievable. I don't know if you know, there's a very funny YouTube video where one of the Ifra boys is acting out like he's being Menachem Avol.
Yeah.
Right? We're about to learn about this video. This is an awesome story. This is an awesome story. Sorry?
Which bus was you run over by?
Whatever, like these types of questions. So we're going to see the ultimate way to make someone who suffers a terrible, terrible tragedy, how to make him feel better. Zog the Heilige Gemara. Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, Shchivele Barta. Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda lost a daughter. Amule Rabban and Lula. So the Rabban told Lula, nobody likes going to Menachem Avol by himself. It's so uncomfortable, you don't know what to say. So the Rabban told Lula, Kum Nezo Ninchame, let's go together to be Menachem Avol. Amalu told him, "My isli gabi necham to the bavloi. Why should I go be menachem a bavloi? I just thought that I might have figured out pshat. He wasn't. I don't know if he was. Okay, let's learn the Gemara. I thought this means why should I go be menachem Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda because he's a bavloi. He's the gedufo. He's a cursed person. But you're going to see in a second he went to be menachem Avol. So maybe he didn't want to go to Rabbanon because maybe the Rabbanon he felt were bavloi. So now that I'm thinking about it, what is the thing that I spoke? He didn't want to go to visit Shmuel because Shmuel was a bavloi, or he didn't want to go to Rabbanon because they're Rabbanon or bavloi.
It says Ula lived in Eretz Yisrael. He would regularly travel to Babylon.
Right.
He was often critical of Babylonian practices.
So who was he talking about? Was he talking about the I don't want to go with you guys, or I don't want to go to Shmuel? Okay, because he ended up going. That's why I have it. That's why I don't. He ended up going to Shmuel by himself. So I thought maybe he just didn't want to go with them, but I don't know. Actually, it might be totally
He sort of suggested it's both.
Could be it's both because what happens is
Of you.
You, like you,
What have
you
I
people,
to
like,
do with
you
the
know,
consolation of you, Babylon?
so maybe he didn't want to.
Him, you know, like
So he said, "Why don't I like you, Omri? You say by being Menachem Avol, my Avshalom Avol. What can we do? Now that you're making it sound like Hashem made a mistake, Hashem did us wrong. But what can we do? He's too strong for us. We can't change things. Avshalom Eved Avdi. What you're telling me, if you could change what Hashem's will is, you're going to change it. That's apikourses. Then it says Azal Hu L'Chadoi Kaboy. So what I mean, if he doesn't want to go be Menachem Avol, why did he go? The Nemuki Yosef changed the Girsa that they forced him to come. So that will make more sense. If they forced him to come, it stems better. Or he, for some reason, or maybe if it's just that he didn't want to go with them, so maybe he does. So that's what I'm not 100% sure about. But either way, he went to be Menachem Avol, and we're going to see a Nichem Avelim for this is going to be a Nichem like no other.
yes, he
Okay.
suggested it's that's exactly what he suggests. Is that he wanted to do the mitzvah, but he wanted to do it and using it as a teaching moment.
Oh, there's a teaching moment here. Oh, you're going to see a teaching
That's
moment.
what he said.
Okay, so the Shulchan Aruch actually discusses this case, and the Ramah in Hilchos Avelos and Shin Ein Vav Sif Beis says you're not allowed to say my Avshalom Eved, but the Rambam and the Rif do not quote this, and because of that, the Marshal argues and says that we don't pass him like this, and you could say my Avshalom Eved, but so there is a discussion about whether or not you're supposed to say that. There's you could talk about the weather. I mean, you don't have to talk about this. There's other things you could talk about. You don't have to wade into the Shiloh. Anyway, Amar Lei, Vayomer Hashem. So this is how Ula was Menachem Avol. So imagine Rahman al-Islam, Shmuel sitting, he just lost his daughter, he's probably tzabbrachan as can be, and Ula comes and tells him as follows. It says, Vayomer Hashem, Hashem told Moshe, Al Totzer es Moav, don't shepherd with them, Bal Tisker ba Milcham. And this happened earlier on in the Midbar, you're not allowed to shepherd with them. Why would Hashem need to tell Moshe not to fight with Moav? Look, why would he fight with Moav? If Hashem didn't tell him to go fight with them, he's not going to go fight. Why in the world would you think that Moshe would start fighting on Milchama that Hashem has to say don't? Moshe better Amar, he said. Now we know what happened. The king of Moab hired Bilam from Midian to curse Klal Yisrael. Didn't work out, and then the Minyadim send their daughters to be Machshel Klal Yisrael, and the Minyadim cause a lot of trouble for the Eden. But the Minyadim weren't the main enemy of Israel. It was the Moav who was. Minyadim was just helping out Moav. So the real villain was Moav, not Midian. So Moshe made a kal v'chomer. Hashem told us, destroy the Midianim. That's what Hashem said. Shiraris ha-Midianim, v'kisa Moshe. So Moshe can make a kal v'chomer. Uma Midianim shalei bo, elo Lazarus Moav. They're not the main haters of Klal Yisrael. They're just helping Moav. Amr Torah Shiraris ha-Midianim, v'kisa Moshe. Moavim. The Moavim, Atzman, loy calls again, surely I should kill. The problem is, when Hashem said, I'll touch it's Moav, it was long before this happened. So that's why Tosha says, it doesn't mean Moshe Rabbeinu now is going to do it. In the future, if you ever want to attack Moav, you might make a kal v'chomer based on facts that I know are going to happen, because Baruch Hu knows what are going to happen. Moshe may not know these facts yet. But Hashem knows they're going to happen, so Hashem is heading it off well in advance, saying you should never even make a kal v'chomer. Don't start up with Moav. So Moav left like Koshkein. Amalek Kadosh Baruch Hu loy kisha also daitach also daiti. What you were thinking, I wasn't thinking. Why? Why don't I want you to touch Ammon and Moav? And there's a whole discussion in Tosfos that you find later on. There were attacks on Moav, like by Eglon was Melech Moav. And you find that they did fight them. And Tosfos brings different cases where there was fighting with Moav. So the Rishonim struggle with it as to why. Tosfos says it was Lavdafka, he just threatened them. But there are Rishonim who learn that Avada, they were attacked. Because why did Hashem want to prevent Moshe Rabbeinu from attacking Ammon and Moav? Because as we're going to learn now, Shtei Preidos Toivos Yesh Li Lahitzemen. There's going to be two beautiful birds that are going to come from these nations. You can't kill them because I need those birds. Who are they? Rus HaMoyavia, Vanama Amonis. So there are those Rishonim will learn that when David went after Eglon, that was already after they were born. So that's why they were no longer restricted. There's a whole bunch of shilas about how that works. But that's one of the mahalchim. So Frek the Gemara about Dvarim Kal v'chomer. Umabish will stay predators toivus because of two individuals, one per nation, Chasak Kadosh Baruch Hu al beis umois kedolos, and two big and nasty, violent, horrible nations. V'lo yichrivan. So Bitesh Rebbe, your daughter of Shmuel, who I'm coming to be Menachem Oval, im ksheri, if she was a good girl, and anything good was going to come out of her. So she's a useless piece of nothing. Don't feel bad that she died. I'm sure Shmuel said, Nicham Tani, Nicham Tani. This is how he's Menachem Oval. Like it blows my mind. He's sitting by a guy who never lost his daughter. Don't worry, if anything good was ever going to come out of her, she would have survived. I don't try this at home. Don't try this at home. But my mind, I can't get my head around it. Like he was, like you said, he was going to use it as a teaching moment. Like, did he get thrown out? You think he got thrown out?
High madrega to
Yeah,
Right.
to be able to absorb that.
Yeah. Be able to accept.
We have to make a video. We have to make like a satire video, acting out
We
the
do have
story.
Elliot for it.
Yeah.
Really good.
Okay, so that's why this Gemara blows my mind. Gezok Gemara weiter. Omer Rab Chiya bar Abba, Omer Rab Yochanan. Eina Kadosh Baruch Hu mekapeach sar kol beria. If you do a mitzvah, you get paid for it, and no matter how many averos you do, it doesn't neutralize your mitzvahs. Afilu schar sichana. Even if someone speaks in a fine way, he will get paid back schar appropriately for that. I'm sorry. What does the article say on
Finish?
the kapeach?
Does not withhold.
Finish?
Withhold. Okay. The ilu bechira. We know that Lot had an older daughter who slept with him and conceived, and she named her child Moav. She advertised to the world, Me'av, this is from my father. And her sister was more discreet. She said, Amoin ben Ami, from my nation. So that's a little bit more discreet. It's not right there in your face. The Ka'amr Moav, she was more prost. Amr lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe, al tatzer es Moav, al tisker b'milchama. Don't pick a war with them. Milchama hu deloi, you're not allowed to fight a war with them. Ha'anagria or Angaria, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. What's that? No, not Levies. I just don't know how to pronounce the word. Is it Anagria or is it Angaria? Hungary, if you want to treat him like a Hungarian, right? Ovid Buddha, you could treat him like a Hungarian. You can make him work for you. You can levy them. You can make him. You could somewhat oppress them. But Seira, who spoke in a finer fashion, the Kamer Ben Ami, Amalek Kodesh Baruch Hu Moshe, the Karafto Mul Bnei Amon Al Tetzurim Bal Tishkabam Klal, because it doesn't say Al Tishkabam Muhammad, it says Al Tishkabam period. Tafilo and Gaira Loi Savid Buhu. So look at this. Because of one selected word, it affected how they're going to be treated forever. That's a pretty awesome thing. There's a very famous story with Reb Moshe Feinstein about this. The story goes, and I heard the story over, and it was hard to believe. So I asked Aaron Miller. This is when we were in Cheder, I asked Aaron Miller, ask your grandfather Rabbi Rivlin, who was a meshamash of Reb Moshe Feinstein, if this is a true story. And he said it absolutely is a true story. It's actually brought down in this farm. Rav Moshe went. These parashas you learn in the winter, and it's when you have an early Friday night. So Rav Moshe went to visit somebody who's in the hospital Friday night, and he walks into the fellow's hospital room, and the fellow was sitting by a table with a chumash in front of him. And when Rav Moshe walked in, he woke up and he looked very startled. So Rav Moshe asked him, "What's going on?" He says, "You're not going to believe what just happened." I was being Mavisedra, and I was thinking to myself, even the most prosta movie star today, if they did something like that, they would conceal it. They were for sure not as bad as today's prostkeit. So how is it that they did that? It doesn't make any sense. That they were slept with their father, I could understand. But to publicize it, nobody would do that. That doesn't make any sense. So when I fell asleep, and the Benoist Lloyd came to me in a dream, and they told me that you have to understand, we thought there were no men left in the world. And so that's why we did it. We did it because we wanted to continue the world. We were afraid. We knew that in the future there'll be a Yashka who people are going to say about him that it was an immaculate conception. We don't want Chas v'Sholom, our children, to be made into a Yashka. So we publicized that it's from our father, so no one would be under any false pretenses that maybe it was immaculate conception. And Moshe, that's pshat. It's emes. That's what they said. So I heard more variations of this story, such as somebody was once bad-mouthing them very badly, and they came to them and they told them, "You're going to suffer because of it, because you were not malamet zchus on us. We actually had a good reason." But the Rishonim bring down on the Chumash that they sorry?
That story
you told. And some Rishonim say they just wanted to know that the father was Lloyd rather than some other bad guy. So they figured that this is better than if they would say it's some other father. But the Immaculate Conception is that's like an eye opener, and Moshe that's shot. That's why they did it. Never push off a dvar mitzvah. Try to do it as soon as possible because you're going to get a huge benefit even from doing it a bit earlier. Why? Lloyd's two daughters, they thought they were doing a mitzvah because they thought there were no more men in the world. So who did the mitzvah first as to conceiving with her father? The mother of Moya. She benefited that her children were able to marry into Klal Yisrael 4 generations before Ammon. Because Rus married Boaz, and who did she have? Oived, Yishai, David, Shloimeh. Ammon at that point had no marriage into Klal Yisrael, but Shloimeh son Yeruchavam finally married Namo. So she didn't get into Klal Yisrael until 4 generations later. Why did she have this benefit of getting in earlier, Rus getting in earlier, 4 generations? Because her great grandmother decided to do the mitzvah first. Okay. Tanu Rabbanon. I don't know if I should say this on a recording, so I'll say it after. I'll say it after about doing these mitzvahs. These types of mitzvahs, there's a good story about that. Tanu Rabbanon. Shor Shal Yisrael, even I have a red line. Shor Shal Yisrael, Shenagach, Shor Shal Kuti. Shor Shal Yisrael, Shor Shal Kuti, Potter. He's going to be Potter. Obviously, a Kuti is considered a goy. V'shal Kuti, Shenagach, Shor Shal Yisrael, Tam Mishalem Chati Nezek, Umud Mishalem Nezek Shalem. Rav Meir Aimer, Shor shal Yisrael shenagach shor shal kuti potter. V'shal kuti shenagach shor shal Yisrael bein tam bein muad mishalom mezek shalim. So obviously, Reb Meir holds that kuti is a goy. Remember, the Savar Reb Meir kutim gevei aroya saying, Frank Tamar, is that so? Or a mini? I'm going to show you that Reb Meir doesn't hold like that. The halacha is, if a woman sees dam, and she sees the dam, and she knows it came out of her body, that dam is tamei midaraisa. But if there's a stain on the beged, that's not tamei midaraisa. That's only tamei midarabanan for a isha yisraelis. Midarabanan, they said that all goyim also are considered zavim v'zavim, so they're all tamei, and their blood is tamei, everything's tamei. But ksamim, they didn't necessarily aser. So if you have a beged that has a blood stain on it, if you know it came from a Jewish woman, that beged is tamei midarabanan. But if it's a blood stain that came from goyish blood, that would not be tamei. So it says kolak samim habayim rekem. Any begodim that come that have stains on them, if they come from rekem, they're tahirim. And Rashi says because we assume that it was a goy, ir sharuba nachami. It's a city that most people are goyim, so we're going to assume that this is a non-Jewish beged. Tahirim. Rabbi Yehuda matama. Rabbi Yehuda holds it's tamei mipnei shem gerim. In Rechem, everyone's gerim, so they're 100% Jewish. The problem is they don't know their halacha. They don't follow halacha properly, and because of that, they're not careful to protect any of their stained begodim from getting out before they would have a chance to toivel it and be matarid. V'toyim, they make mistakes. If we know that this stained beged came from goyim tahirim, we can be completely confident it's tar because there's no tumah. Mibein Yisrael, mibein akutim, but if it comes from Yisrael or kutim, clearly they're being bunched together here. Reb Meir matame, so clearly Reb Meir holds they're Jewish. The Chachamim matayin, why? Shaloi nechshedu al kismein. We're not choshed kutim. So the Chachamim also agree that they're Jewish, except if you find a beged with a kesem, we'll assume it doesn't come from a kuti. And it doesn't come from the Israelis. You know why? Because they wouldn't lose those begodim. They're very careful to protect them, to prevent them from spreading. So if you did find one, it probably fell from a good. But whatever, you see both Reb Meir and the Chacham hold, Alma Kasav Reb Meir Kutim Gerei Emesing. So if that's the case, why in the world do you sanction them? Why don't they get paid if you damage their animal? And why do they have to pay Nezek Shalim if they damage your animal? Rabavo, Knasu Shakonas Reb Meir b'mamoinam shlo yitmu b'em. We don't want the Jews to marry into Kutim, even the Jewish ones, because there's a problem with them. And therefore we sanction them. So Bishlama before, why Hashem sanctions Yishmael, it's because they didn't respect your money. Why they pick this way to separate between Yidden and Kutim, I don't know. Right? It's very interesting for them to pick this. Unless once we already see a precedent, Lagabe Zok and Lagabe Shmuel, maybe that's the thing they use. But for whatever it is, this is going to separate them. So really they're Jewish, but we make them pay Nezek Shalem, and we don't pay them is because we want to draw a big red line in between them so people should know they're not like us. Masav Reb Zera. If someone is mafata a woman, a basula, or he's ma'anis a basula, they get knas from him. And who's even included in receiving the knas? Abala mamzeres. Even if she's a mamzeres, if she's violated, she's entitled to be paid a knas. Valanasina, valakutis. If you hold that Reb Meir counts their money, he should consider as well that they shouldn't get knas in order that they shouldn't get mixed in. Oh, thank you. The only reason why we don't take the knas away from these women is because then the guy who violated the woman, he's a benefit. If I'm going to violate, I'll pick a kuti. That's not right. More, so that's not a reason why he shouldn't pay. Make him pay, but tell him he has to give it to tzedakah, like a knas you get in yeshiva, right? Who's going to force him? If it's given to her, she will take him the best, and she will make sure she collects her knas. But if it's an ani, this ani will say, "I want your money." He'll say, "No, I want to give it to that guy." You'll be able to be machim, and therefore they didn't sanction it.